Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. Today's story is a story with strange and bizarre events. But before I can start, please do not forget to subscribe. So, today's story took place in Kuwait during the 1950s. The person who told the story had lived through the last events of the story, I could say. But the father of this person had almost lived or had been through all the events that happened or took place on the street or neighborhood of a specific area. A woman named Abir lived with her father and his wife, that is her stepmother. And she was not that of a kind person, I would say. She didn't really like her and wanted to get rid of her in one way or the other. And the easiest way, in her eyes, was getting Abir married so that she could leave the house for her and her husband. Therefore, she appealed to the women in the neighborhood and the suitors and asked for the recommendation to find a man who could marry her. She asked them to find anyone, whatever their conditions would be. She would literally put pressure on her husband and convince him to marry his daughter in order to get rid of her. And of course, the suitors started finding someone or the other to actually get benefit from this marriage, which was the easiest one because they literally didn't want anything specific. Now they found a perfect match. One of the suitors said that she found a man who financially is not that good, but he's living in his father's house. That means he's living all alone. She said that he is not young. That means he's in his 30s. And whenever he asked someone to marry or proposed someone, he got rejected for one reason or the other. He did own a house, which was one of the most important priorities. Here, the suitor said that the reason he was holding on to his father's and grandfather's actually house, and he didn't want to leave it no matter what, because it was an old house. So she asked what was wrong with that. She said that they have heard that the house is haunted. People literally don't talk to him. They ignore him or they tend to leave the place or run away. Now they used to avoid him. She asked, what is the problem with the man himself? Well, nothing. People didn't like him or didn't actually know him because they didn't talk to him. And therefore, her stepmother actually didn't care what the man was or if he had seen ghosts or if the house was haunted. She just wanted to get over with the girl. The suitor said that Ali, the man, they said that they have a good news and there is a girl who had finally, they found a girl who would accept his proposal if he does propose. And she said that I have actually told her parents about the house, that people say, what people say actually, she didn't say that what she thinks, she said people say that it's haunted by ghost or jinn. And whoever accepts his proposal, to be clear, after knowing what's going on in the house, he wouldn't mind, of course. Here she also explained that the girl who would be accepting his proposal if he went and proposed actually in the right way was a girl who lived in her stepmother's house, and her stepmother again wanted to get rid of her and did torture her every now and then. And on the contrary, she said that she was very beautiful, an orphan, but because she was getting bullied by her stepmother. That's the only reason maybe they would agree to. She was very clear. So Ali here went, next day, he went to the father and proposed her. And for some odd reason, the father here didn't refuse at first. Well, the man didn't refuse. On the other hand, he said, congratulations, you deserve it. And I know that you're a good man, but Ali explained that he wouldn't be able to have a wedding ceremony. And the father agreed to that too. He agreed to whatever the man was saying, actually. So here he said that there's no problem at all. He said we would have a small ceremony at the house itself. And he also said that I don't really want people to know that I'm getting married, or he didn't really want it to announce at that very moment or at those very dates. So again, it was like the father was selling his daughter because he didn't ask much. He didn't demand much. I mean, parents shouldn't demand actually during the wedding, but to agree upon everything was weird. And he didn't, at that moment, again, he didn't even ask his daughter. And he was lying when he said that I know you, because that was all nonsense. He was pressurized by his wife, and he didn't really know the man. They did ask Kabir, but now that they have asked Kabir, she immediately agreed because she was also tired of the whole drama and torture her stepmother was doing and making every now and then. So they had a very small ceremony at home, and she went to her husband's house. Now, Abir was kind of lucky enough because, firstly, she didn't know the story behind the house, that the house was haunted and Ali was an introvert. She didn't know all of that. But within few days, she found out that Ali was a very kind and affectionate person. After a few weeks of marriage, she asked her husband if she could visit her father. And of course, the father's house wasn't that far, and she went on foot. We're talking about the 50s in Kuwait. Very few people had cars in that time period. But she had something in mind. I would say she was up to something. After being to her father's house, she went back to the house. But instead of entering from the front door, she went behind the house and she started staring at the house in a weird way. After a while, she went back in the front of the house and entered. She made note of something, which was quite weird again. The house from the inside was quite small, but from the outside it was huge. She thought that it could be the quarter of the house. It looks like inside that is the quarter, and there's a house, part of the house, which is divided. I would say she thought that there would be another part of the house, and there was nothing except a tiny door. And it didn't appear to have any other doors except a very small one. Ali did warn her about something she wasn't sure of. He said that you don't have to cook. You can prepare small snacks or something, but you don't have to cook. She had a very small kitchen. As for the lunch and dinner, he said he will be bringing the food from outside. She didn't ask from where because it was just the beginning of her marriage. It wouldn't be right to do so. Now, to get the lunch, he used to go somewhere near and come back before she could even, recognize that he went and bought something and came back. Now, later, after asking him, he said, "Don't ask me." He made it clear again. And he explained. And later, after she kept on asking, after days and days, that, "Why aren't you letting me cook?" He said that part of a house, he made a huge kitchen. It's like a kitchen where he cooks and sells, like you would say catering. And therefore, he can easily bring the food and there's no need whatsoever for cooking. So he was taking advantage, I would say, of the quarter of the house, like a restaurant or food supply or catering. So now that we know that the house, half of the house is divided into two quarters. One quarter is where he lives with her, and the other is kitchen for catering, or where is the large half that is at the back of the house. Who lived there? The girl began to scrutinize in the matter. She paid a visit to her stepmother and started asking. She said, "Do you know Ali well, or what he does for a living?" She said that there were some strange things going on in the house. And I wasn't convinced of, and I felt like something was wrong. She said it was like someone is crying or whining. Her stepmother here started seeking refuge in the name of God, the most compassionate and merciful. She asked her again, "Is there something wrong? I mean," she said that you're acting weird and as if you know something, but you are hesitant and you don't want to tell me. Actually, it sounded like something was fishy. She also asked her neighbors, who really didn't talk much and ignored her and her husband. So she said that my husband says that he is catering, but he doesn't know anyone. So who is he selling to? There was no answer whatsoever. She had this feeling. She felt that her stepmother was lying or hiding. She really wanted to know what was wrong, but she had to find it for herself. Everyone, including her stepmother and the suitors, felt that they had done something extremely wrong. They had let this go to something that was bigger than they could imagine, and they felt that was their fault. But it was too late. Every now and then they would ask her how she was and how was life and how's her house, was she comfortable or not. They were concerned, but their concern, literally, I would say, in my opinion, was of no use. Whenever she approached There are some signs which were more difficult for her to handle. She knew that her husband was kind and didn't really, I would say, question much or talk much. Whenever she approached her spouse, he ignored her. As I said, he was an introvert, so he didn't spoke much and he didn't like sitting a lot with her. Again, it was true that he was good and everything else, but now that she was pregnant and many months had passed by, he keep on hearing screamings or cryings or whining. She didn't know if it was a human or not. She wasn't aware of anything at this point. Now, instead of her stepmother getting involved and finding out the truth for themselves, she said that she would leave this matter for Abir to discover. She was almost about to give birth, so she therefore requested her stepmother, to stay with her in the house because it was impossible to stay in this situation. On the other hand, she knew that her husband would always disappear for long hours. And what happens if no one listens at the very time if there's an emergency or she's about to give birth? But her stepmother refused. She said, no matter what, I'll not come and stay with you. So she asked other women in the family and neighborhood to help her in case of any emergencies again, and everyone rejected right away and gave no reason whatsoever. So she thought that as long as her husband was interested in the subject of her birth, she could easily ask him what was going on. And because she was determined to know the truth, what was the backstory of Ali? And why was the house, which looks quite small from inside but large from outside, has in it? Lots of other questions were just going through her mind. The mansion appeared massive from outside, but only a quarter of it was occupied. Now, these events have occurred in almost 2015, and he informed her that the story actually occurred in the 1950s. He told her that he had lived in the house since he was born, and the house had been restored and renovated numerous times since then. So the house tour was passed from his grandfather to his father, and then to him. But actually, the house belonged to Ali and Jabir, as both of them were siblings. So the story is all about Ali, who lived an incomprehensibly wretched life. And that is why people used to fear the house, because they feared his grandfather's brother, Ali. Now once, before he could continue, it was hard for Ali to say the truth, but he thought that it was the right time. Again, the story, he said, took place in the 50s, long before he was born. It is related to his grandfather. Once, his grandfather's father was strolling around down the street with Ali, and Ali at that time was 6 to 7 years old. Now, one of the neighbors approached, and they stood and they started greeting each other. Now, he was actually holding on to a young girl, and here he said that, "May God protect your daughter, Noura." Here Ali responded that it's not his daughter. Noura is not the daughter of our neighbor. Here the father and the neighbor were in great shock. Ali said that Noura is not the daughter of Abu Jabir, the neighbor he was standing with. Rather, it was the daughter of Abu Yaqub. His father implored him to remain silent because he was embarrassed that a 6-year-old would judge someone. The neighbor, again, I said, he was shocked, but he didn't care much, or they didn't care much, because they believed it was a child's word. So they ended the conversation and went in separate ways. They returned home and began to ponder why someone would make such an accusation against their daughter. He thought perhaps it is Abu Yaqub's daughter, rather than his own. Well, Abu Yaqub was the brother of Abu Jabir, so he began to suspect and have doubts about what the boy had said. However, he made up his mind and went to his own brother, Abu Yaqub, and said that a few days ago, I was walking with my daughter Noura, and my neighbor and his son were walking by. And when we greeted each other, the boy jumped and exclaimed, "This is not your daughter. It's the daughter of your brother, Abu Yaqub." Here he said, "Are you serious?" And he replied, "Yeah, I swear." What was the story behind this? Perhaps it was just a child. Perhaps he was confused. And why were they making such a fuss about it? They then went back to the home of Abu Jabir, the father of Ali, and asked him to bring Ali so they could question him. Abu Jabr was surprised, but he did call out his son. And here they asked again. And he said, yes, Noura is not your daughter. Abu Jabr, she is the daughter of Abu Yaqub. Afterward, he returned home and entered. He put a gun to his wife's head and proclaimed, I will kill you. I swear that I'll kill you if you don't tell me whether Noura is my daughter or not. This poor lady, she responded, by God, she is your daughter. And I have never betrayed you. I mean, she had 4 sons and 1 daughter. Initially, he claimed that if we concentrate on Noura, she resembles Abu Yaqub and his wife. And he stated that she has strikingly similar appearance. Therefore, he went to his brother, he went back and said, listen, I swear to God that this is not my daughter. She is, in fact, your daughter. And here, when he went to his wife and demanded an answer under the threat of a gun, she said, answer me and tell me the truth. That Noura is your daughter? Now, Abu Yaqub had 3 daughters and 1 son. Again, Abu Jabr had 3 sons and 1 daughter. Abu Yaqub's younger son, or the youngest son, was the same age as Noura, spouses of Abu Yaqub, and Abu Jabr had given birth on the same day. Now, she started shedding tears, and she wanted to confess. But as they say, to be continued, and I'm confident you appreciate listening. Please do continue listening to the second part of the story, which will be uploaded next week. So thank you for listening.